Okay. Okay, so I guess this meeting's called to order then. And I don't know who was I supposed to do the poem? I hope not. Does someone have a poem?
I have one.
Great.
This is a poem from Paul Laurence Dunbar. It's called Disappointed. An old man planted and dug and tended, toiling in joy from dew to dew. The sun was kind and the rain befriended. Fine grew his orchard and fair to view. Then he said, I'll quit my thrifty fears, for here is fruit for my failing years. But even then the storm clouds gathered, swallowing up the azure sky. The sweeping winds to white foam lathered the placid breast of the bay hard by. And then the spirits that raged in the darkened air swept over his orchard and left it bare. The old man stood in the rain, uncaring, viewing the place the storm had swept. And then with a cry, his soul despairing, he bowed his head down to the earth and wept. But a voice cried aloud from the driving rain, arise, old man, and plant again.
Nice. Great. That was nice, fast. Okay, keep going. Sign in. This is Abra Bentley. I'm on Queen Avenue, and I'm the treasurer, and tonight I'm the parliamentarian for this meeting. Do I call in someone? Christopher?
Yes, hi, Christopher. 1042 North Perry. And Eva, same address. I don't know. I can't see everybody.
Ernesto.
I pick Ernesto.
Not fair. Ernesto Portillo, Public Information Officer for Housing and Community Development. I pick Sky.
Hey all, Sky Jacobs at 729 North 10th Avenue. How about Cedar?
I'm Cedar Warman. I live at 133 West 2nd Street. How about Karen G?
Hi, I'm Karen. I live at 1023 North Perry. And I am going to pick Anita.
I'm Anita and I live on 1003 North Perry Avenue. I pick Lisa.
Lisa
Lisa, are you
said,
there?
she says she's at 827 North 9th. I think her audio usually doesn't work.
And she picks Natasha.
Natasha, 101 West 2nd Street. I will pick Kermit.
Yeah, I'm on second Street as well.
We can't really hear you, Kermit. Okay, we can move on then. We have Kermit. Virginia?
Yeah. Hi, this is Virginia and Esther. We're at 141 West 2nd Street. And we pick, let's see, I don't know everybody, Jim Cook.
Hi, everybody. Jim Cook. I live at 747 North 9th Avenue. And I will pick Matt.
Matt Williams, 938 North Perry. I pick Billy.
Everyone, I'm Billy Smith. I'm at 1030 North Perry. And I have a little one I have to put to bed in just a few minutes, so I'm going to keep my video off until then. Nice to see everyone. How about who's left? Did we hear from Lisa?
We did hear from Lisa.
Oh, sorry. Liz, do we hear from Liz?
Hi there, I'm Liz Morales. I'm with Housing and Community Development for the City of Tucson. And then Anne, have you had a chance?
And I'm Ann Schnecka. I'm also with Housing and Community Development with the City of Tucson. And I've lost track of who hasn't gone.
So my little bit. Margie, have you gone? No. Desert, did you go? Can people hear that? I can't hear anything.
It's very low. I couldn't quite hear it.
Yeah, Desert, we can't really hear you, but there we go. Let's see, Margie is on. And I think Temp is that, that's Nico. Nico, you want to go? Can people hear me?
Nika says, hi, Desert says, hi, I live at 48 West 4th Street on the corner of 9th.
Well, I'm not sure everyone's able to go here, but did we miss anyone? Jim, did we get you?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay.
I
Well,
haven't had a chance yet. Hi, my name
okay.
is
Sorry about that.
Nicholas. Hi, my name is Nicholas. I work for Supervisor Grijalva for Pima County District 5 Board of Supervisors. And so I'm just sitting in as someone from the county. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you for attending. Okay, well, sorry about folks that for some reason we can't hear, but if anyone wants to put their message on the chat, some people have been doing that, that would be great. So I guess we can move on anyway. We need to get approval for the December minutes.
So I just dropped the
Oh.
link in the chat for those minutes.
Oh, great.
Let's give people about 4 or 5 minutes to look at those.
Okay.
And so we have a sort of a funny challenge with the minutes because in order to approve them, we need a 2/3 majority of voting members. But of course, not everybody was here. So it's funny to approve the minutes of a meeting you were not at. But I will share this, that we post the minutes on the listserv and give people the option to add revisions during the month. So that's our process. So you could also think of it as voting to endorse the process.
So if people have had time, it looks like Karen has made a motion to approve the December minutes. I second that. I wasn't there. And so all those in favor? Are you counting these facts?
That's a bit of a challenge. I counted 9 in favor.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
As well. Is that enough?
We'll see. Let's see the opposed and the abstentions.
Okay. With desert counted, oh, with desert, Karen counted 10.
Okay.
So yeah, sorry, does anyone, do we get the, who abstains and I guess. There's one. Does anyone not approve the minutes? Okay, there's 3 abstentions. So 5 abstain. And there's 10 approve.
Sounds like they passed to me. That's
Okay.
2/3.
Okay, great. Okay, moving on. That's very complicated.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. All right, so treasurer's report, that's me. We're still at, I believe, $960 approximately. We're trying to work on dealing with this issue, and we don't really need to talk about it here, but FAFS did approach Ward 1. We haven't heard back from them if they had any thoughts on how to deal with an account. So hopefully we'll hear from them soon. Moving on, are there any announcements?
I'll give this announcement of the pruning 1.0 workshop this February 12th at 9 a.m. And that's for people interested in tree care. You can find more info at the Dunbar Spring website.
Great. Any other announcements? Okay. Looks like we're ahead of schedule. So we're moving on to discussions. And the first discussion agenda item is Ann Shineka from the City of Tucson Housing Services to talk about a request for proposal for building housing on 11th Avenue. So Ann, take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Abra and FAFS and everyone for having us today. My name is Ann Shineka. I'm with the Department of Housing and Community Development. Really grateful to have 2 other folks from the department here with me. Liz Morales introduced herself earlier. She is the Director of Housing and Community Development. And then also Ernesto Portillo is on. He is our new Public Information Officer. And part of that role, he'll be working with neighborhoods on community engagement and really being a good link between neighborhoods and the department. So I thank you again for having me on the agenda. I had asked to provide an update. I've been on the Neighborhood Association meeting a few times as I've been asked to move this project forward. And so I'm sure almost all of you know the history of that site. I'm not going to go into all of that at this time, but wanted to provide some updates. I'll say for me, there's been a couple North Stars since Liz asked me to work on this. One of them is in 2004, the city committed to work with the neighborhood and advance housing for that site. I'm cognizant that that's almost 20 years at this point. And so I'm really interested in seeing this happen and really making it happen this time around. And I think that, as many of you know, I wish this was 10 years ago, but we're here where we are. I would say the mayor and council recently adopted the housing affordability strategy for Tucson. And when I'm done talking today, I'm going to put a couple links in the chat just to make sure everyone has them. But the housing affordability strategy for Tucson talks about a few different things. It talks about how 75,000 households in the city of Tucson. This is not Pima County, it's the city. We know our housing cost burden, paying more than 30% of their income on housing. And that situation is only getting worse. Between 2017 and today, we know the median rent rose an estimated 40% and the typical home value rose almost 60%. So these are things that just, to me, highlight the need to move the site forward sooner than later. And so that said, given it's been a while, there's some challenges to advancing affordable housing development. So one of the things I've been working on, and this is what I believe I mentioned last time I talked to you all, I hired a consultant. They are called BAE Urban Economics. They specialize in affordable housing development and affordable housing finance, along with a few other things they do. But I really felt like given the real estate market in terms of how crazy the market is, and then given construction costs have been fluctuated, really wanted to make sure we had our ducks in a row as we move this forward. And so I'm going to read a memorandum that they recently sent me sizing some of the work they did. And one of the websites I will put in the chat, I now create a website where I'm posting all of this information. So anything that we have that we can share on this project moving forward is now on the Housing and Community Development website. So the memorandum summarizes what BAE has been working on, and I just want to provide that update briefly. So one of the first thing they did is look at the site, and I also say, when you look at the memorandum, you'll see that there's two sites. It's the Dunbar Spring site near Salvation Army, and then also a site in Menlo Park. So don't be surprised by that. These are two sites we're trying to advance at the same time. So the information they did, they took a look at the zoning, they took a look at the information that the neighborhood had provided before, and then also the responses that developers provided when we did a request for information. And so they using that, they put together a massing scale, and all of this is in the memo, just showing what's potentially feasible for the site. And they use that to do a financial analysis. And so all of that, the pro forma and all of that's in the memo. I won't go through all the details of that, but there's a few key takeaways that really helped me in thinking about how to try to push this forward. So one was knowing that the neighborhood has expressed interest in affordable home ownership. They did do a pro forma comparing what would happen if it went forward with a rental housing option versus affordable home ownership. So the first key takeaway I would say is, based on all of that, we are moving forward with affordable home ownership. One thing I do want to mention, a few of the developers that submitted did ask if there could be a rent to own option as a potential option model for them to propose on. So that is what we're proposing at this time. Developers can do affordable home ownership out of the gate for their proposal, or a rent to own option. And the reason that I think that's important is we've been told that it's hard sometimes to find enough people that fall into the low income category for them to qualify for affordable housing, but then also earn enough that they can get a mortgage for the site. And so it's developers, some of the developers have asked for that to be a model option with long-term, with home ownership being the goal. And so that's key takeaway one. Key takeaway two, you'll see in the pro forma, they did 3 different affordability mixes. They really wanted to see, with today's market, what we should expect in terms of what the income for the households that we should tailor the site too. And so, and I know that your guidelines that you worked on for a long time do have recommendations on that. And so here is what the financial analysis showed. They did 3 different mixes. The first one was 100% of the units would be for low-income households at 80% of area median income. The second mix they ran was half of them would be for households at 80% area median income, and the other half would be for households at 100% area median income, so getting more towards workforce housing. And then the third scenario they ran was 3/4, so 75% at the 80% area median income, and then 25% at 120% area median income. So long story short, all the numbers are there, but the key takeaway is they do feel like it will be likely there'll have to be some workforce housing to offset the costs of the affordable housing to keep them affordable. So that's key takeaway 2. Key takeaway 3 is even with adding in some workforce housing, you'll see that the profit margin for the developer is still very, very tight. And so I bring that up because as we move forward and ask developers to submit, I do think that there will have to be trade-offs in what we're asking them to include in their design to also make sure that they stay affordable. And so those are kind of the main themes that I would say came out of the work that BAE Urban Economics is doing. The next phase, and wanted to talk through based on that work and based on all of the work and that's led up to now, we do want to move forward, trying to get a co-developer sooner than later. And I'll walk through what the process that we're currently anticipating will look like. We've been in conversations, we've had a few now with our attorney's office and with our procurement office to make sure that everything that we're proposing can work. So we're still finalizing all the details, but I do want to walk through what I anticipate at this point. So we do anticipate, and procurement's telling us this is an absolute requirement, a 2-step process. And so the first step in the process will be releasing a request for qualifications for people to let us know who's interested in the sites. And so that request for qualifications will ask, who's the organization? What's your experience developing affordable and workforce housing? What is the team you're proposing putting together? And it will ask information to qualify the developer. And that's important. It's part of our state law, according to procurement, because we can't ask information on price at that point. And so we qualify these firms, and at that point, we're also shortlisting developers that submit. So out of that step would come, assuming we have at least 3 that submit, the developers would be shortlisted to 3. At that point, we would move into the second step of the process, which will be the request for proposals, where they would actually submit a concept for the site. And as part of that, we know that a lot of work was done on the guidelines. And so for that, say there's kind of 3 main categories of criteria for the request for proposal. 1 is design, 2 is sustainability. And those are the 2 areas that I would say the guidelines you all developed really touch on. And then the third area that would also be considered are things like timeline, and we will be asking them for a pro forma to know that they know enough about how much it will cost and that they have the financial backing to do these projects. And so that process, still working out all the details, will use your guidelines as information in terms of scoring them, still working out with procurement what that looks like. And I see Liz just jumped back on camera. And so did you want to add something, Liz?
Yes, something that that was one of the needs of all the sites that we're working on is to ensure the long-term affordability. And our intention is for these sites with home ownership or whatever model, we're going to ensure either through a land trust or some other mechanism to ensure that these properties remain affordable.
Thank you, Liz. I appreciate that reminder, and Ernesto, feel free to, if there's anything you feel like I left out. That's just sort of an overall update that we are looking to move forward and are really kind of excited to see things move. We talked with procurement today about what that timeline will look like. And of course, things always take longer than I think they're going to. But we're hoping to get that first part of the process out sooner than later, in terms of at least getting people submitting information if they're interested in the sites and going through the request for qualifications process. So that's our update, and happy, I believe, to FAFS and Abra to take questions.
So does anyone have any questions for Anne or the city?
Karen has her hand up, and so does
sorry.
Christopher.
Karen.
Thanks. Two hopefully quick questions. One is, when you mentioned that the profit margin for the developer is tight, I guess I'm wondering, our thought was, since they don't have to pay for the land because the city owns the land, that would help in terms of the profit margin, because that's one very big cost that they don't have to incur. So I'll start with that question.
That is factored into the pro forma, that we would be probably doing some sort of ground lease, but the cost of the land was already taken away and the profit margin is still pretty tight.
Okay, then the next, well, that's a bigger issue about like what my version of a profit margin is going to be different than a developer's version, but that's neither here nor there. So my other question has to do with the RFP, and you talked about the three things: the design, the sustainability, and the timeline. Well, and the pro forma, but like they almost seem like they had kind of equal weight. We've been waiting since 2004. So I would say timeline, I wouldn't want to give timeline as much weight because we've already shown that we can wait a long time. So if there was a developer that had the other stuff, that was something that, the other stuff in terms of the design and the sustainability, I would hate for them to lose out because they maybe couldn't do it to some random timeline when we're almost at 20 years now. So I guess I'm wondering about that. And do we have any say in that, or is the city kind of hammering down on that?
So I'll just jump in, and I one of the things we are taking back is your feedback as to what's important as part of the scoring and the criteria. So if we hear that timeline shouldn't be an issue, and again, that's not necessarily a procurement or a legal requirement, but we will want to know what their approach is and what their time. I would guess most of them have this pretty similar. But again, that doesn't have to be a very weighted area, but it is part of the approach and experience that we look for.
Great, thank you both. Thanks.
Christopher, did you have a question?
Oh, hi. Yeah, I do. I just was hoping that you could provide a definition because I just don't know. What defines workforce housing?
Yeah, so I mentioned that the mixes that are in the pro forma were at different percentage area median income. And so at this point, we're saying anything 80% area median income and lower qualifies as affordable housing. And so One thing I did look up is for a family of 4, that's a household, and at 80% area median income is about $55,000. And then at 100% area median income and 120% area median income, that's where we start getting into what would be called workforce housing. And so that's more in the $70,000 to $100,000 for a family of 4 range.
Okay, awesome. That makes perfect sense. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Are there other questions? We still have up, Natasha.
Hi, I just wanted to know if the developer would have to apply for both Menlo Park and Dunbar Spring, or could they pick one or the other?
Yeah, good question. They can pick one or the other. We're actually going to run them as separate procurement processes. That allows us to have a separate committee for each of the different sites.
And are you going to allow anybody from Dunbar Spring or multiple people to sit on this committee?
Yeah, we're still working with the ward office, but there will be neighborhood representation on the committee.
Anyone up, Fafs? You have a question?
Would splitting the lots up into individual lots and developing them one at a time be a possibility, or is that not a good idea for some reasons?
One thing I'll say, because the goal is affordable homeownership, my understanding is they will have to be split up, so that given that if you're buying the structure, that's my understanding at this point. That said, in terms of how it's developed, that will be all part of the scoring. So yes, there is options, but so yes would be the answer. But if somebody, depending on what's proposed, what scores highest is the way that we would move forward.
I guess a follow-up, I guess what I'm asking is like, could say a firm propose to develop one house or 2 houses or like a duplex instead of all 9 lots?
No, at this point, we're looking to move forward with one team for the entire site.
Any other questions?
And I just wanted to, I believe part of what we are putting in there is I don't know if we're using the word preference or encouraging them to work with smaller scale developers. Did you mention that already?
Yeah, thanks, Liz. So part of the housing affordability strategy is realizing we need more housing everywhere and we need different scales of housing. So we have a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot, we have some nonprofit affordable housing developers that build larger multifamily structures. And in my mind, we really need to grow more middle housing or smaller scale developers. And so as part of this process, we are looking to reward, if there is an experienced developer that's willing to take on a less experienced developer or aspiring developer, they would get more points through this process.
We probably have time for one more question. Anybody? Karen.
Thanks. Just a quick question in terms of even if there are, so as part of the RFP process, will there also be opportunities so that it's not just the people on the committee, like if there's 1 or 2 people from the neighborhood that are on that committee to look at, like, is there an opportunity for more people from the neighborhood to have a presentation of like, hey, these are the 3? Is there anything like that as part of the process?
So we are still in discussions on that. There are some challenges with procurement guidelines in that the procurement process via state statute is supposed to be confidential. So we're working out what we can and can't do in terms of potentially having a public meeting or potentially having input in other ways. And I see Liz just unmuted.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that Anne really went to bat for that, just so you know, because we knew that was the preference of the homeowners association. So we're gonna continue having those conversations, but their likelihood is some legalities and confidentiality that we won't be able to do that, but maybe there's some other ways we can do it. And even once maybe the award is done, that the winning bidder can do a presentation to the residents. But it is definitely most likely not going to happen just based on what we heard. So we'll have to just include residents on the scoring so that at least someone from the neighborhood, representation from the neighborhood can see all three presentations. But there'll have to be a high level of confidentiality with that.
Karen, on a related note, the developers would also be scored on outreach plans for their proposals. So, we are trying as best we can within the constraints of state laws to provide as much information as possible. But again, they'll be scored on their outreach plan. If a developer A comes in with a very minimal or non-existent outreach plan, little to no points versus a developer who comes in with a robust, aggressive outreach plan.
Thanks. I'm thinking about what happened in Menlo Park with the Westmoreland site previously, where there were two developers that put in their proposals. They presented to the neighborhood and the neighborhood said, no, thank you. We don't like either of these proposals. And if that hadn't been presented to the neighborhood and it was just a committee, the committee might have decided, and then the neighborhood would have been like, we don't like them. So I guess, so Ernesto, I appreciate hearing that is part, that their outreach is part of it, but I'm just, I'm just concerned that I don't, just like some people are like, why do only the 7 people at the meeting make decisions? It kind of runs into that same thing. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for trying. And I know you are going to bat for us, and Liz, thank you.
And I mean, we're still in conversations. Right. We're trying to figure out how to have meaningful input while still following, as Ernesto said, still following all the rules that we have to follow.
Well, thank you, everyone. I think we need to move on to keep on schedule. Thanks, Anne and Liz and Ernesto.
Gracias.
Thank you. I'll also put my contact info if people have questions.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Thanks all for coming. Appreciate it.
So we're moving on to the traffic calming, which Christopher Rose is going to discuss.
Hi, yes. I don't know how much discussion there is. I'm just throwing this out to the neighborhood in hopes of receiving some feedback and thoughts. If you're on the listserv, I posted an email that expresses concern about the extraordinary traffic that has been diverted through our neighborhood because of the construction on Stone and, well, pretty much all around us at this point, with the exception of Speedway. And it's gotten pretty bad with the closure over at 4th and Granada, Maine. I forget. I feel like the name has changed since I was a kid. In any event, leading down to Congress. Point is that people are moving down University at an extraordinary rate, 4th and 5th during high traffic commuter hours. And I don't know, I saw that Nancy from the Whistle Stop was so kind to respond, and that a letter, or that it was brought up in another meeting. I'm just curious if anybody has any thoughts, things that we could potentially do. I'm happy to draft a letter if anyone knows who we should get it out to, or if, I'll just finish by saying I thought they did a great job with the Stone closure before from Speedway down. That did mitigate and redirect quite a bit of traffic. So I don't know if that's something that we can sort of push to get a little further down Stone and over towards the tracks at the end of 4th. But I'm happy to do legwork if anybody has any suggestions. Or if no one cares, then, then so be it. But I've stopped walking my dog at 5 because it's just crazy
Yeah.
out.
It's pretty bad. I will say that the main thing is going to be wrapped up, it's going to be reopened going southbound any day. So that will help a lot. Most of the traffic, a lot of it is coming from that closure. They redirect everybody basically onto University from Maine.
Oh, so is that just a short-term situation, Sky?
Yes, that should be wrapped up. They're going to reopen Maine pretty much any day. It's already past the schedule to reopen it now. So yeah, they're going to be doing some more work. So, but the actual closure of Maine is not supposed to last much longer.
And Maine, I don't want to go off topic, but Maine is being reduced to 2 lanes, one north, one south. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Well, then maybe this was a totally unnecessary agenda item.
I mean, I think it's still going to be bad, but maybe not. It will definitely get much better, but it will still be bad, of course, because there's closures everywhere else around the area. So people get frustrated and cut through anyway.
To answer Karen's question, I did think that the local traffic signs helped a bit. So I don't know if we can request those. I'm happy to write a letter. Maybe Dunbar Spring Neighborhood Association would even rubber stamp it and we can get it out. Okay. Maybe I'll follow up with Karen if no one else has any meaningful input.
Well, this is Dominic here. I agree with you. I just don't know who to write to, so I don't really have anything to contribute. But it would be nice. There is a lot. I have a dog to walk to, and it's getting a little bit sketchy in the evenings because of that. But I'm resigned to the level of disturbance until the construction's over. I'm fine with it, but if there is someone to write to and a solution to mitigate some of the traffic, that'd be great. I just don't know.
Well, I know that Nancy put out a email that had several contacts. I could always just do a little legwork and follow up with those folks as well. And, maybe a neighborhood letter with some simple proposal for local only traffic signs would be nice.
Yeah, Fabs.
Yeah, I think I agree. Let's follow up with those contacts. And I think this one will, changing the street soon will change this traffic pattern. So, but let's follow up with them, Christopher. And because I don't want to do a vote, well, the last time we did a special vote, it felt like it was kind of premature. But I would propose that if you write a letter and then ask people on the listserv to sign on to it, I bet 20 or 30 of us would sign on, which would be a significant one. So yeah, I totally support that.
I'm happy to go that route. Absolutely. Thank you.
Is Karen's hand up, or is that just a remnant?
Oh, sorry.
No, it's real.
Okay.
Karen, sorry about that.
That's okay. So I was wondering kind of connected to what Fabs was saying was that if you do the individual letter, Christopher, and then we also see what happens with Maine opening up, then maybe there is at the next meeting, there's an agenda item for writing a letter if at that point we still think it's necessary. So like if the individual letter at that point, you should hear yay or nay, we should have a better idea of the traffic and what's happening once Maine is reopened. And, that gives us another 3 weeks anyway to find out. But then it would be an agenda item and it wouldn't be a special vote and people would be aware of it ahead of time and all of that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe
It'd be good to keep an eye on it because it is not only the main closure, but there's just more traffic on Speedway backed up all the way from the freeway actually lately often. So I feel like some of the cut through traffic is actually just from things beyond just the construction too.
Maybe we need to pick a larger animal for our signs rather than rabbits. Inside joke, sorry. I'm happy to write a letter and I'll follow up with Karen and yeah, and I'll get an agenda item for next time. I thank everybody for listening.
Great, thanks, Christopher. Okay, moving on then to the next discussion item. Forming a committee to update the bylaws for the internet age. And Fats, I think you're gonna.
Yeah.
talk about that.
So one of the thanks, Abra. One of the things that I've been thinking about is looking at the bylaws, and there are some things that require having mailing out, for instance, notice to all 660 residents, which feels like it could be done over email more simply, and would allow us to do things. For instance, this in the last year, we've had Bill, who's our secretary, hasn't been able to be secretary, so that duty has fallen to some of the other officers, and we've been sort of rotating it through. But it would have been much easier if we could have asked someone else to come on, but it would have required a huge amount of labor for us to do that. It would have required both printing and then mailing out those 660 envelopes and then collecting signatures and vote. So I propose that we call a committee that looks at those bylaws and comes up with a few changes that lets us do things a little easier with email rather than over the snail mail. And so I just wanted to bring that here and see if there's anybody that would be interested. My guess is it would be volunteering, say about 5 hours over the next month to meet, to look at those bylaws and just come up with 3 or 4 changes that we could then bring to the next meeting and talk about.
I was part of a bylaw the last time the bylaws were updated, and it was actually it took forever. It was so painful. And then I think it says in the bylaws, if I recall correctly, that you have to basically, there's a big process to change them. You can't just have a meeting and change them.
You are correct, Sky. The bylaws require that in order to do a change, you have to mail out a copy of the proposed changes to all the residents. We have coming up in March a newsletter opportunity. So I thought we might piggyback the bylaw change into the newsletter because the city does the mailing for that newsletter, and that would make it easier. So that was my thinking.
Put that government funding to work.
Karen says, one thing to remember is that not everyone has either access to a computer, email. Oh, I lost it. Or is on the list. So I would definitely want to be sure we still do the mailing for the annual meeting at least. Okay, yeah. Is there anybody here who would be open to just being on that committee to look at it? And it wouldn't be a commitment to propose any changes, just to look at it and see if there's any updates we could do. Excellent. Thank you, Christopher, for volunteering.
You're welcome.
I wouldn't say I would want to be on the committee to go to all the meetings, because I put in my time last time, and it was an inordinate amount of time, but I could review.
All right, your input would definitely be appreciated, Sky, especially since you have experience doing it before. Thanks. All right, Sky and Christopher, thanks very much for volunteering. I'll see if I can tap any other friends that might be interested too, but I appreciate it. And we'll let you know if we can get a committee together, and we'll report back at the next meeting. Thanks, everyone.
Great, thanks. Okay, next agenda item, committee reports, although we already sort of talked about the 11th Avenue lot. Do we need to talk about that again? Anyone?
I don't think so. Usually if it's in the actual thing, we skip the
Skip it.
report.
Is any other reports? I don't think so, because they're not on here. Okay. So reports from the field. DNARC.
Okay, so our last meeting, we had Andy Squire, who's a public information officer for the city of Tucson. We want what the process for the city in light of COVID. Like, why is the gem show happening? Why is the book festival happening? Why did the jazz festival happen? That kind of stuff. And so he just kind of went through it, and essentially the special event process has nothing really to do. There's no public health component to applying for a special event. I mean, obviously they have been working with the public health department, but there is no component about any kind of requirement of setting up protocols. So that was kind of interesting. And then plus the governor's executive orders have limited what a city can do. So kind of even if the city wanted to, they kind of can't cancel events. What's interesting is that there's a difference. So like the book festivals on the U of A campus, so the city has zero say over that, like nothing. They can't say anything about that. They can't say anything about private business. So a lot of the gem show stuff happens on private property. So they can't really say anything about that. They can say something about what's going to happen at the convention center, but they're putting safety protocols in place. So they feel like, they can just go along with all of the safety protocols. So anyway, it was interesting and disheartening at the same time to hear that. And then the HSL developer, they're the ones that did the Flynn apartments, which is where the old, gosh, I'm totally not remembering what it was called, but like that building that was painted all those different colors, and then they tore it down and they put up new apartments there. Next to those, between that and the hotel, they're looking to do a development for upscale senior housing, 80 to 100 units. La Frontera is working on an affordable housing project that I think is also for seniors at 1430 North Oracle. My understanding is that a lot of that, it's not like for new, but it's for all the people that when the Tucson house, when they get money to redevelop the Tucson house, that those folks would go into this, this La Frontera building. So it's not like, but I haven't heard much in terms of the Tucson house and what's happening with that. And then if you get a chance, there is a new affordable housing project at Prince and Stone. I realize that's not in our area. The developer was Newport, but like the difference between that building and the building that's at Grant and 6, which is also affordable, which looks like a gulag, and this one, which is also affordable, like it's astounding the difference. So there's obviously lots of stuff that you can do and still have things be affordable. So I thought that was interesting. And the Pasquayaki tribe they're working on moving forward with the casino at I-10 and Grant. They're doing some kind of a land trust, and it is moving forward. It has to move forward at the federal level, but it is still moving forward. So, there might be a casino at some point at I-10 and Grant area. And that was kind of it.
Great, thanks, Karen. Neighborhood foresters, I know Fafs mentioned the pruning coming up. Is there anything else? No? Historic 4th Avenue Coalition. Natasha?
We're working on 2 surveys. I put one out on the listserv. It's a community survey asking for feedback on what people feel like is working in the area and what's not working in terms of safety and lighting, public restrooms. different things like that. And then we asked businesses in the area to take a business survey. And then we're going to have a charrette, which will be virtual on Sunday, February 13th from 1 to 3 p.m., where we'll take some of this feedback we've been getting from these surveys and then try to propose some ideas that then we can go forward with looking for grants and looking for support from the city and Pima County to maybe implement some of these changes that we're hoping to have in the area. So that's kind of what the big thing we're working on.
Thanks, Dunbar Coalition. Is there anyone here? Nope.
Sorry, I had a question real quick. Natasha, is that survey still open?
Yes, it's still open.
Cool, thank you.
Looks like Lisa sent those minutes to the listserv from the Dunbar Coalition.
Okay. Okay, great. So I guess you can read them there. Barrio Neighborhood Coalition.
Actually, so so we can probably take this off. I'm not on the planning of that group anymore. And I think they're going to be meeting at a time that I'm not going to be able to meet, but they're definitely doing some long-term planning. And I think right now they're looking to write a letter in support for the neighborhood that's at, I want to say La Cholla and 36th, that there've been a bunch of letters to the editor recently that the city had annexed that area. And as part of the promise, the city said that, it would only be, one house per large area, not mansions per se, but like that it would be very deserty. It would still feel very deserty. And now there's a developer that is looking to do some high density development in that area. And so the residents there are feeling like the city is reneging on the promise that they made when they annexed that area. So there are also concerns about flooding, and there's just a lot of concerns about what's happening with that. And the houses that they're looking to build are very high-end houses. So it's not like it's helping the affordable housing situation in that area either. So anyway, that's that. But I would say let's take it off the agenda moving forward, unless I find that I can start going to the meetings again, but I don't think I'm going to be able to. Thanks.
And finally, Downtown Links. I guess we can all see what's happening there, huh? Oh,
yeah. Yeah, I haven't seen any, they haven't been sending out emails like they used to so much. So yeah, you can just follow the new roads as they keep growing. I can't remember if I said it last month, but you can take Church South. So like I've been riding my bike on Church South to get to work. So that's it might have been happening last month. I can't remember, but that's something newish.
You mean where it comes off of Main and goes and curves to the
We're
south?
on 6. So like if you're heading
sorry, I meant
east
6,
on 6,
right.
you can either go straight on 6 or you can scooch off to the right and take Church South.
So anything else? Looks like it's time to adjourn.
Yay.
Snaps?
No, I moved to adjourn.
Okay.
Oh, actually, I do have one more thing. I forgot to put it on the agenda. Our annual elections are coming up in April, and I just wanted to put a bug in anybody's ear that participates that might want to think about joining as an officer for the coming year. I would appreciate the help. I think I want to serve one more time as president, but although obviously if you want to take president, come and get it. But we're going to have those elections. So if you have any questions about how that works, feel free to shoot me an email. You can see my email on the list, or I'll post it in the chat too. So think about that. Get at me if you have any questions. I moved to adjourn.
I second. Or do we have to do all those in favor? Bye.
Yay.
Yeah.
Thanks all for coming.
great.
I really appreciate it. And Abra, thanks so much for facilitating today.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone.
Good night.
Thanks for having me.
So we don't work out something out like maybe in San Diego.